There's a really interesting apocryphal text called the Gospel of the Nicodemus, or the Acts of Pilate, and it does actually tell the story of when Jesus was on trial in front of Pilate, and then it talks about afterwards when Jesus went into the earth and he broke down the gates of hell, and there's interactions between Hades, Satan, and death down there. And then it mentions that there were saints that were spoken to that were resurrected in Jerusalem, or the town of Arimathea. And yeah, they were kind of telling the story about what happened in the earth. I meant to say that Adam is spoken about in being amongst those who were set free from hell.
So we're grandchildren of Adam and Eve, right?
We're all related to the first man and woman.
But there were other people, because God created men and women, man and the woman, and then only in Genesis 2 he created Adam and Eve, right? Do you think we're different kinds from those people that were created by God in Genesis 1?
I believe that what the Bible says is that Adam was the first man. So it could be a situation where on day 6, God created people, right? And then there's a more detailed account of like his creation of man in Genesis chapter 2, right? And then you have Genesis chapter 3 in the fall. But I do believe that there's room where they could be the first people, but not the only people, right? It's more detailed about them, and they're more significant because they're placed in God's garden. It doesn't mean that God didn't create other people around the earth. And I believe that there's indications that he did, because
Cain went somewhere,
founded a city, got married to somebody. And the way that the book of Genesis is read is that Cain is the first son of Adam and Eve. Mm-hmm. And the second son is Abel. Mm-hmm. Cain kills Abel, and it's after that Seth is born. Mm-hmm. So Seth is the third son, right? And Eve says that he was a replacement. God replaced the son that she lost in Abel. So if you think about it like that, Cain is already an adult, it seems like, at that point. So there's a long period of time before Seth is born from the time Cain is. And this is after he's already killed Abel. And this is around the time when he had been expelled from wherever they lived, not the garden, because Adam and Eve were already expelled from there. So then he went out, took a wife, and then founded a city, named it after his son.
Enoch.
Yeah, so it seems to me that there had to be other people, because the one thing he was worried about was that God had to place a mark on him, because he was worried that people would have known what he did and they would have killed him. And God says that if anybody, basically lays a hand on you,
they won't be able to do it.
Yeah.
What do you think that mark was? Some say it's hair color, skin color.
I don't know.
It's a speculation.
No, I mean, it's really mysterious. It's hard to know what it is, but it is interesting about even like the Bible, how it talks about like a mark. Of course, we really concentrate on the mark of the beast. It also mentions the saints were sealed with a mark. But I believe people believe that is a spiritual mark, and I believe that a lot of them are maybe spiritual marks.
So do you think those 140,000 people in the book of Revelations were not Jewish, but believers of Christ?
No, actually, I believe that there was, okay, so the gospel goes out to the Jew first, then the Greek, right? Mm-hmm. And it mentions in Romans 11, there's this remnant, right? This remnant is going to be saved. Well, just think about like this, the way the book of Acts goes, is after the day of Pentecost, where do they start preaching first? Jerusalem. And then thousands are being saved right then. Mm-hmm. So I believe that, again, this makes more sense in a past view, because where are the tribes now? Who are they?
Yeah, where are they? Scattered?
Yeah, they could still be scattered, but nobody really knows what tribe they're from. And to be perfectly honest, during the Second Temple period, it says, and I believe in the book of Nehemiah, that a lot of people could not actually prove their genealogies anymore. So there would have been way less ability to be able to say what tribe you're from. Now, the 144,000, it could be actually a literal amount, but I think it's interesting when you think about like 12,000 from each tribe. 12 being like kind of like a number of completion. I think maybe just like a number just to indicate this is all of them. So how many was it? It could have been literally 144,000, but it makes sense to me that where the apostles were supposed to go. So you have Paul being the apostle to the Gentiles, but then you have the rest of, it seems like the apostles, even though we're not told too much about it, that they were going to preach in the land of Judea, the land of Galilee. They were going to the lost sheep of Israel. So they were gathering them back in. And you think about, like, Jesus was prophesied to bring them back, right? He's the shepherd. He's going looking for the one, leaving the 99 to go get the one. And he mentioned that he had a flock and he was getting his sheep together. And then he had a flock that was elsewhere that they were also supposed to be brought in. So it makes sense to me that the apostles' first duty was to go to the places in Israel. And so this is the remnant that are being gathered before the last time. And I believe that when people are looking for a future fulfillment of this, I believe that this was supposed to be this remnant that was saved before 70 AD. Because even think about, like, that idea of, like, being saved. Being saved from what? Well, today we're being saved from the second death. But John the Baptist, when he comes, he tells the Pharisees, who warns you about the wrath to come? So in some ways, again, there's a physical judgment that's coming on this earth. And they're also being saved from that. Because if you believe on Christ, you're spared from God's wrath that was coming to the place that crucified the Messiah. So I think that that's kind of what, like, they're indicating. Like, they know the tribulation is coming, so they're going to be spared God's wrath. They're going to be saved from God's wrath. And I believe that the people who did believe, they likely, heeded the words of Jesus, who said, when you see the army surrounding Jerusalem, when you see these things taking place, the abomination of desolation, flee to the mountains of Judea. Mm-hmm. Leave.
Right.
So is that part of them being saved because they believed Jesus, and then they were spared the Romans destroying Jerusalem?